Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about what now happens after Southern District of Texas Judge Trump appointee Rodriguez has held in very firm terms that and the first judge to do it, that the administration's interpretation of the Alien Enemies Act is all wet, in fact, is unlawful, and has recognized the right to relief of a group of named plaintiffs and then possibly a class as well of plaintiffs, that is, people who are similarly situated. We don't know all their names. Let's put the class thing to the side. Obviously, it matters to people who might show up in the class, but it's really the main ruling on the substance that is going to matter. And the administration shows every sign of trying to fight back in ways that I think are going to be semi-honest. Maybe I could put it that way, but a real challenge to the Supreme Court. Okay. The holding applies to everything they've done. The whole invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, the brainchild of Stephen Miller. Oh, I know. We'll call the presence of 100, 200, 300, you name it, supposed presence of people from Tren de Aragua, a predatory invasion by a foreign country. And that is the whole. This was developed during the transition, and hooray, here's a way we're just going to get rid of these people with no judicial review. And they did it, including at a time when the Judge Jeb Boasberg in the D.C. District Court had said, don't you do that. And that is still playing out if they should be in contempt. Finally, and not until Rodriguez's opinion yesterday, did we have a federal judge, again, a Trump appointee, say, this just doesn't pass muster at all, which, notice, makes there be a cloud over everyone down there. The clearest Tren de Aragua member and the nastiest customer, you need legal authority to be transferring. You just can't say you're a bad dude, get on this plane. And they didn't have it for any of them. At least that's the state of play now. We're going to see opinions in the district courts of the Southern District of New York. Judge Hellerstein, I think, is coming very soon. The District of Colorado. And this issue now has also come up in Judge Boasberg's courtroom. I did another YouTube today. It's about the preliminary proceedings where the administration is saying, oops, sorry, can't do anything about this Venezuelan national. Recall that Abrego Garcia is a El Salvadoran national who was mistakenly, just flat out mistake, sent to this hellhole in El Salvador. But let's switch now to what the administration has been saying and what it portends and why it is both sort of despicable, but also worrisome in terms of just the justice for these people whose rights have been so fundamentally abridged. Imagine we have people who, at least under the allegations, I mean, the guy Moto I just mentioned, no criminal record here, none in Venezuela, is just, shows up for a routine immigration hearing. Next thing he knows, he's in CCOT. Okay. Notice what's happened over the last few days. First, you have this kind of stunning interview that Trump has with ABC News, Terry Moran, where he says two things. One, he says, yeah, I could bring him home if I wanted. It's nothing to it, and which is what everyone, well, certainly I and others have been saying for weeks now. Give us a break. This notion that, it's a big foreign policy problem and you just can't get there. No, it seems obvious that a two-bit dictator like Bukele of El Salvador wants to, please Donald Trump, not to mention that the whole thing's, it's just a contract. We are paying them millions of dollars to house our guys. And as the customer in the contract and the payer, we just say, send this one back. We made a mistake. That really does not seem to me to be a deep foreign policy, international crisis. So Trump says that. On the other hand, we have Marco Rubio who's now been, I think irrevocably converted to a Trumpy, and I think that will follow him around for his whole career, saying, I actually spoke with Bukele, the president, and I'm not going to tell you word one of what I said to another foreign nation. But what we have is the basis for the United States to say something like this. We tried to facilitate the way you asked us to. Couldn't do it. Bukele just said, no, this is my sovereignty. Don't try to tell me what to do. Sorry, but we gave it a shot, and we can't elaborate on that shot without revealing important foreign policy secrets, blah, 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 blah. Now, the record of this administration, really means you have to give a jaundiced view to things like this, because they'll kind of say anything, and they've been saying anything, and that includes Marco Rubio. But the record that may be presented to the Supreme Court would be something like, here are several people swearing. There's been discovery, and they've sworn there's been some interplay with the, something you can point to that's happened with, that can be characterized as efforts involving Abrego Garcia at high diplomatic levels. And at that point, the U.S. can say, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. We're standing steady, but we gave it a shot. Sorry, we just, couldn't persuade those really intransigent Salvadorans. And oops, too bad. Now, at that point, we are really right at the kind of nub of the matter, both doctrinally and Supreme Court justice-wise, in terms of counting to five. Doctrinally, there's a lot of doctrine out there that says there's a presumption of regularity and good faith. And when the executive says, we tried, you believe them without trying to go behind and second guess too much. There's a problem, which is this administration lies all the time, and they're probably not telling the truth. And I think especially the district court judges may well smell that, think that, try to order up. That's a little bit what's going on now in Judge Zinnis's courtroom about Abrego Garcia. I want some depositions. I want to know what you did. I want to know what you said. That question will be asked. But I think if the Rubio sort of public stance is any indication, you may well have administration being forced to, saying, I'm ordered not to respond to that question. And that's the kind of thing that goes up to the Supreme Court. And then the real issue will be, the rubber will hit the road on whether there are 5 votes. I think there are clearly 2. There could well be 4, and Chief Justice Roberts would be the 5th to say something like this. We said facilitate. They told us they did. We cannot question the good faith of the executive. If they did do that, that's all they can do. Nothing more we can order them to do. And that's the end of the story. Poor Abrego Garcia, or poor Mota, the Venezuelan national, have to just rot in CCOT forever unless there's a diplomatic solution, notwithstanding that we know not only was it a mistake to send them, we knew that before with Abrego Garcia, but it was based for everybody. I mean, really, all what the import of the finding by Rodriguez, which I think will be affirmed in other courts, is the whole group was flown down without any kind of legal authority. And the question is, will the Supreme Court just say, nothing to be done about it now? And I foresee, and that's the point I wanted to drive home here in the aftermath of the Rodriguez decision, a kind of very elliptical, well, we talked to him and that's all we're going to say. And the question will be, given the doctrine that's out there, given what has to be the Supreme Court's reticence to really get into a fight that they might lose in sort of cataclysmic ways because the executive says, go screw yourselves to them, and then we are really in the soup. will 5 members of the Supreme Court and basically John Roberts say the better part of discretion is to say, well, they tried, seems unjust, but that's all that we poor little modest courts can do. And that's a possible endgame. It wouldn't equate exactly to a judicial abdication. They'll still be, in fact, it'll be part of the point, asserting and reasserting the power of the judiciary to find constitutional violations. It will apply going forward. Don't think about sending anybody out and without some review about whether it conforms to the law and due process. Of course, if we're at this point now and the administration says, oops, we did it again and sent more down, what's going to happen on the remedy side? It will be the same kind of really sort of irresistible force meets a movable object, except the immovable object here being the courts move. I can see that happening. It's not quite, the end of democracy, but it's a really, really lamentable development if that's how it plays out. And, particularly such either abdication or just confession of powerlessness as against the most patent, nasty, kind of nightmarish ultimate violation of constitutional rights by the United States to take people who shouldn't have been there in the first place and send them down to a life sentence under terrible conditions in El Salvador. Man, oh man, if that's what the Supreme Court says has to happen because the callous Trump administration says we tried and we Supreme Court can't second guess, democracy is hurting bad. It's not exactly the same, however, as democracy has been blown to smithereens, but it's a close second. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.